You're listening to the Curious Equestrian podcast, produced by Horsemanship Journal and hosted by me, Anna Louise Claydon. Through this podcast, we delve into the enigmatic world of horses, bringing together trainers, behaviourists, and horse owners, each sharing personal stories that deepen our connection with these majestic animals. We unfold diverse stories of horses and their people, stories that inspire, that challenge and transform us. So join as we traverse the depths of equine behaviour and psychology, where curiosity leads the way and every horse has a tale to tell, enriched by a variety of human experiences and insights. This is the Curious Equestrian. Today's guest is Andrea Wady, an equine relationship specialist who emphasises the importance of understanding horses for a strong connection. Now, if you missed our first episode ever together, make sure you scroll back and take a listen. It's all about escaping the ordinary, reconnecting with horses, and sharing the secrets to true equine harmony. It's a good one. Add that to the podcast listening list. Just scroll back on the Curious Equestrian and you'll find it. But today, Andrea is back, tackling another challenge in the equestrian world. She's launched a new initiative to empower older riders in the saddle and on the ground. In this episode, we delve deep. We get talking all about ageism in the equestrian world. And we talk about refusing to be written off in lessons and in life as well. We talk about the ageing process, the menopause, what changes as a rider physically and mentally, and as a horse owner too, and how to navigate the additional challenges that brings. We delve into lots of issues actually that we all face in life. Not being boxed, not allowing anyone to pressure us, making sure we feel empowered in the decisions that we make with our horses. And we also get talking about how we can make sure that we don't sacrifice our equestrian lifestyles as we age, and what new goals we might have in our older years. It's thought-provoking, it's inspiring for those who are already considering themselves as an older rider, for those who are approaching the next phase of life, but also for the younger generations like me as well, who look ahead and imagine a life with horses, hopefully, until the day we die. Let's dive in, shall we? Andrea, it's not often we say welcome back to the Curious Equestrian.
I know, I'm lucky. I can't have been that bad if I got an invite back again. That's good.
Well, thank you so much for coming back. And I'm particularly excited about the fact that we're going to be talking all about Wise Riders today, an initiative for older riders curated by yourself. And for me, it really struck a chord because I come from whole generations of older riders in my family who would hack well into their 80s, that would ride in Hyde Park, that would go hunting. And some family members of mine started riding when they were in their 40s, so they'd always been older riders. But I wondered for you, what was it that inspired you to become passionate and to focus in on older riders in the saddle?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of my students were definitely sort of over the age of 40s and 50s, right up to their 90s. I've got students in their 90s, which blows my mind. And I was just seeing that they were so underrepresented by the equestrian community at large, by the companies, by the training. It just was more focused on gung-ho younger riders. I never really paid that much attention to it. And then when I left Costa Rica at the beginning of COVID, I was at the peak of my fitness. I was riding 6 hours a day. I felt fit. I felt great. I'd get on any of the young horses. It was fine. Came back to England, went into lockdown. My whole life changed because I knew I needed to move back to England to care for parents and things. And my fitness started to slide. The dreaded menopause descended. And I started to realize that my body just felt so different. And also my brain did as well. That gap from not riding 6 hours a day and not climbing on youngsters all the time. I started to question. It wasn't a fear-based thing. It was just like, I just don't think I want to climb on the back of this 5-year-old anymore. that's, thinking life is super exciting. And I was just like, I just don't think I want to do this anymore. And I was starting to see how the industry is just not focused towards people like that. And if you're not feeling super gung-ho, you're just pushed aside. It's like, well, there's nothing there for you. So I really set out. I was like, no, I did a lot of research, and one of the largest demographics of people who are riding are women over the age of 50. And I'm like, why are we not being represented? So I did this formula sort of for myself, really, what I called the Wise Riders formula. I had no intention of launching Wise Riders. I did it for myself, just to sort of look at why I wanted to do certain things with horses and why maybe I didn't want to do it anymore. I shared it with a few students and it just hit off. So it went from there, really. And we've got hundreds of students all around the world now who are finding their way back into having more confidence and starting to achieve the dreams that they thought they'd have to put aside because they were just not feeling gung-ho enough. And we've just given them a way to break it down and make it more achievable. Yeah.
They often say that all the best ideas come from solving a problem that you yourself are facing. Andrea, talk us through what you were going through physically and mentally when you felt those changes in your body.
Yeah, well, frustration, I think. I kept playing over that I should just be getting on with this. I should be getting on with it. But, with menopause, kicks your backside, or can do. And, the energy wasn't the same. I think as you get a little bit older, you think, I really don't want to hurt myself. I don't have time to hurt myself. I don't have the resources. Certainly during COVID, no one wanted to be out hurting themselves. So we were kind of stepping back a little bit from riding so much. And I think when I came back to it, I was just like, I don't want to be starting youngsters. But you kind of feel like a failure if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to be gung-ho. And I just thought, no, this is not right. We shouldn't be made to feel like a failure. Yes, for the most part, that is self-imposed. We're in this mindset in the world now. You can do anything. You can conquer everything. Yeah, you can, but it doesn't have to look like that. I'm not scared of anything. And it might be that people aren't scared of their horses, but they're just finding that their confidence is not what it once was. Their balance, perhaps, is not what it once was. But that doesn't mean you need to give up. It means you need to reframe what you're doing. And that's what I set out for myself, because I'm my own worst critic. I'm super competitive. I want to get going. I want to do what everyone else is doing. And I began to realize that it just didn't feel wise to me anymore. And then I broke that down into W for wise being why. Why do I want to do this? Why do I want to perhaps fly across the cross-country course? Actually, I don't think I do anymore. Okay. So I for intuition, why don't I want to do it? What is my body telling me? Perhaps my balance isn't what it was. Perhaps I just don't feel like I want to ask my horse to do that anymore. That's the flip side of it. I don't want to ask him to do that or her to do that. And then the S for safety. What am I doing to keep myself safe other than trying to keep up with everyone else, trying to feel that pressure of I should be okay with this? Actually, I'm not. And maybe now I want to wear an air vest where I didn't wear one before. Things like that. And then the E being evaluation. How was that? Do I want to do it again? Was it fun? Because this is the bit that we forget. This is meant to be fun. This sport, or not sport, but this hobby and this love of ours and this way of life costs money, and quite a lot of money. So if we're not finding joy and fun in it, I can't tell you how many students we've had who said, I was on the verge of quitting. I was done. All I was doing was caring for the horses. I didn't feel like I was confident anymore. I didn't feel like I knew what direction I was taking anymore. So that brought us to what I call the 1% rule, which, let's face it, that's how I train horses. Can we just find a little bit, an approximation, look at the big task, break it down, do a small piece of it, and feel good about it? But we weren't ever offering that to ourselves. So that's what we're trying to do. So I did all this for myself, and it really helped me get back on track and break things down a little bit. Things that I used to do with my eyes closed, metaphorically, didn't bother me at all. Now I needed to break it down a bit, and it's okay. It's okay to change your plan.
And talk us through a session, Andrea. How does the WISE actually transpire within a session with a client, or for yourself on a personal level? What does it look like, your formula?
Yeah, well, an example, I had a student recently who was coming back from a nasty fall. She'd had a bad fall. She was a great rider, ridden her whole life. She was on top of everything. Bad fall, seriously rattled her confidence, as it would. That is not a failure. That is your body and your mind trying to keep you safe and repeating what could really hurt you. So her body and her mind was just like, I can't do this anymore. And she was like, I just am so compromised. I don't want to quit. I don't want to lose this from my life. I don't even really care if I ride, but I want to be around horses. But even that is making me anxious if the horse is leaping around on the lead rope. So she wanted to ride. She wanted to get on. Even the thought of it getting out the car was making her feel physically sick. And it's a trauma. It's a trauma from an accident that's happened that really has hurt you. So we broke it right down. Can you go and get your horse out of the field and feel okay about it? She was like, actually, for the most part, I can do that. It's like, great. What about when you tack up? Actually, as I start to swing the saddle up, my stomach's getting tight. I'm starting to feel anxious. It's like, okay, let's work on that. Approach and retreat, just like we train our horses. Lift the saddle up. Was that okay? Not bad. Great. Rub your horse, take it off. We do a few little exercises to help center you, help calm you down, slow the nervous system down. Try again. How does that feel? Actually, a bit better. Great. Rub the horse, call it good, and be done for the day. And she's like, but I thought we were going to ride. I'm like, if you get on this horse now, you are going to undo all of that good feeling and probably feel anxious. The horse will feel it. He'll sidestep away from the mounting block. You're going to relive everything and it's game over. Don't do that to yourself. Be kind to yourself, just like you would with a horse or a dog. We break things down for them all the time if we're good trainers. And we're okay with that, but we won't do it to ourselves. To ourselves, we say, I'm so stupid. I should be over this. I'm not good enough. We just beat ourselves up so bad. And so it's breaking it down. So she did that. Then an hour or so later, we came back, did it again. She felt fine. So then it was a lead to the mounting block. Can you just stand on that mounting block? No, I feel anxious. Okay, step off it. Walk your horse around a bit, come back. She's like, oh, this is insane. I should be over this. It's like, but you're not. And that's okay. If you were talking to someone else who'd had the accident that you'd had, you'd be so much kinder to them. So it's being aware of that self-talk. Eventually, we worked up the steps. Can you just sit on your horse? She sat on the horse, burst into tears. Not because she felt anxious, but actually because she didn't. Because we'd broken down the steps and she was like, first time, this has felt okay. So what do we do? Get off. Get off now. Don't, just have that feeling and be done for today. It took probably a week of working with her. She could have done this without me. We've got the formula all set up for people where they can work from home. The community can help support. And she broke it down. She is now back riding. I'm not going to tell you that she never felt fear again. Of course she did. A trauma can stack up, a deer moves and the horse thinks and you think, oh boy, that's okay. You just stop, get off, rub your horse, walk for a bit, get back on when you feel better. We're told all the time, never get off. You're teaching them to, we've been there in my previous podcast. I just don't hold that.
Well, this is it. How often are we told by instructors, get on, and then when you're in the saddle, just get on with it. And it's all about what you're doing next, what you're going to achieve next. Now you're on, you're going to trot, you're going to canter, you're going to go off, you're going to do a series of jumps. It's all about the next thing, isn't it? Without even a minute to process it or to think it through or to decide whether you actually want to or not.
Yeah. And the problem with that, and I think this is why a lot of accidents can happen, is people think, I don't feel right, I feel anxious, so their hands get tight, their seat get tight, their back gets tight, their legs get tight, they get tight. Then the what ifs start to run because your nervous system has gone, you are in freeze mode, something's going on. The horse starts to get anxious. That's when you're more likely to have an accident rather than going, oh, here comes the tight tummy. I might just stop my horse, wait and see if I need to get off. I'll just stop and breathe for a minute. Maybe do one of the Linda Tellington-Jones heart hugs. Absolute game changers when you're in the saddle. You can do it with one hand. And maybe you'll be okay. And you think, no, I can ride on. Or maybe you go, I need to get off. Great. Get off. And you'll feel really better for it. It's just giving ourselves that permission. The old way of doing things, it's don't trip over what's behind you. Just do it your way.
I love that you unlock that conversation that getting off isn't a weakness, that it isn't failing, but actually that is part of succeeding and being safe and feeling better.
Yeah. And I think that ability to be honest with yourself about how you feel, because fear quite often can translate into aggression. And you'll see people being overly strong with their horse. And I can see it. I'm like, they're nervous. They may not want to admit it to themselves, but they're feeling the nerves. They're feeling a little bit anxious, maybe out of their depth. So they go into mega control mode, which can come across a bit aggressive to the horse. And the horse is like, what the heck? What have I done? And it just falls apart from that point. The horse will thank you so much more when they feel you get anxious and you get down. They go, thanks for that. Now I can concentrate on what's moving in the bushes. And we can pass it together, get back on, carry on. Sets you up to win. Yeah.
And Andrea, you've spoken to lots of older riders as part of your research for this about their fears and about the challenges they were facing. What were they angry about in the equestrian sphere? What was on their minds? What were they passionate about changing?
Yeah, I think it was the ones I've heard from a lot, the same message was people who felt they got written off by instructors. If they weren't bombing around, willing to jump, willing to do all of these things, which, a lot of people, it might not even be fear. It might be that they want to put the relationship first and not, they've evolved, they've moved on in the way they want to be with horses. But it seemed to some of them that if they weren't really willing to be gung-ho, the instructors would lose interest in them or say to them, oh, you mustn't go more than a trot in case you fall off. So then makes them feel like their point is pointless. They're worthless at that point, rather than changing the way that we teach and aim it to the older rider and go, hey, why don't we try 2 steps of canter? See how you feel about it. Reward your horse, walk about for a bit, change your focus, and maybe we'll try again if it felt good. We need, I think, to overhaul a little bit how lessons look. I've had a lot of students that are older that say, the only way I can ride now is through an hour's lesson. But I don't want to just constantly ride for that hour. I want to try something, maybe rest and walk for a minute. And I'm talking maybe the older generation here. They want to ride a bit, walk a bit, do a bit more, change the focus, maybe stand and just pet the horse and talk for a little bit, get back on, do a little bit more. People that don't ride a lot and they're older, they get really sore. They're not used to it. The other scale of it would be people who have ridden their whole lives and then they were not feeling the same. They were feeling a bit anxious. And then they would feel from the industry, I guess at large, with, come on, you've got to overcome your fears, get back on, get going. Don't let the horse win. Nothing to do about the horse winning. It's about a very normal process of life. As you get a little bit older, you're more cautious. We do not bounce like we used to. We don't want to bounce.
And going back, Andrew, to your point about being seen to be written off in lessons, where do you think that ageism comes from, considering in this country we've got a lot of professional riders who are older, who are competing in the sphere, but also our own royal family? Our late Queen was riding into her 90s. You know, our current King rides in the Trooping of the Colour. Why then in lessons in riding schools do people get written off?
Because you're talking about gung-ho riders right there. You know, he's riding in the King's Parade. Loads of the older eventers, they are kick-ass, spectacular riders. That's not your average older rider. It's not. They're an inspiration. They're the top of the pyramid, but that is not your average rider. And I think, you know, to be fair to the instructors, some of them are a lot younger. They don't know how it feels to have your balance feel different, to have your confidence level feel different. It doesn't mean that you want to be put on the very quietest horse there is and never try anything. It's about how we try it. And we need to work on these approximations of breaking things down for riders into much smaller pieces so they can achieve something, feel good about it, bank the good feeling, and then slowly expand their comfort zone. Doesn't mean that you don't have your dream of cantering down the beach. You do, but the way that you get to it might just look a bit different. Yeah.
Who are your inspirations, Andrea? Do you have any, either personally or professionally, that you look up to in your own world?
Yeah, some of my students are just unbelievable. I mean, there's loads of mentors. There's the lady who, I can't remember her name, but she rides around on this gorgeous big old cob in England. She's got a Jack Russell up on the saddle and she rides
Is she
from
on
one end of
social
the country to the
media?
other. Yeah.
Is she on
I
Facebook?
can't remember her name.
Yes.
She's amazing. Yeah. She's amazing. And then you have Lady Long Rider in America, who I think she might be in her late 70s or 80s. And she rides from one side of America to the other. I just think that's incredible. But they go at their speed. They do it on their terms. They're not trying to impress anybody. But like I have students of mine, a lady in America, Lois, she's in her 80s. She rides every day.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so many people that just my inspirations are the people who don't care what other people think. They're out there having a go and they're having fun. And they put the relationship first and they put themselves as an important piece as well. They don't try not to berate themselves too much. And it's not easy. That's not easy.
So you're empowering your older clients to sort of own their own power.
Yeah, I'm trying to. And I'm trying to encourage them as well about training their own horses. Because people say to me, I'm not a horse trainer. I'm like, do you go and get your horse from the field and lead them in? Yes. Then you're a horse trainer. So the second you're with your horse, you and your horse are learning together. And they can learn good things or they can learn the wrong things. So thinking about how you do things and being willing to break things down, because a lot of people are on their own. You know, they might live in remote areas. They might not have an instructor near them that they resonate with. Maybe they do, and that's fantastic, but they feel on their own. And that's why we created the Wise Riders Club. And we have monthly webinars with incredible instructors. We've had Warwick Schiller, George Brunice, Karen Rolfe. We had Linda Pirelli on there. We've had Dr. Stephanie Burns. We've just had Dr. Kate Fenner. Incredible teaching. So that's a part of it, which inspires those people to go, actually, I think I could do that. And all of the people that we have sharing the instructors on the webinars, they're all over 50. So they get it. They understand. So they're giving the students really good ideas and things to focus on. Then we have the community aspect where we're all in it together from ages of 50 to 90. And I love it. It's people are not telling others what they should be doing or commenting in a funny way. It is an incredible space full of really supportive people. And I love that because a lot of the students are people that want to put the relationship first. And, when you take that road, it can be a bit of a lonely one. So that brings people together, which is great. And some days they'll come on and go, I've just had the worst ride of the week. It's been terrible. And everyone's like, I bet it wasn't that bad. So everyone supports each other. And then the third part of the Wise Riders Club is that we have what's called the training journals, which are an incredible resource through Callie King's horse class online university. So there's a whole program there which comes with the Wise Riders Club. Everything from nutrition to in-hand work, liberty work, riding, saddle fit, everything in one place. So you're amongst like-minded people getting incredible instruction and putting everything through this wise formula of breaking everything down, knowing why you're doing it, trusting your gut, being safe, and then deciding if that works and you want to do it again. And if it didn't, how can we change things? So that is not what I saw coming when I started the formula. I did it for myself, but like I said, we now have hundreds of students all around the world, and it's just become an absolute highlight in my life listening to these incredible people. Some of them are lifelong equestrians, some of them are new to horses, and just everyone's got a story, and we have the time to hear them and comment. And yeah, it's fantastic. I love it.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because in the olden days, which actually probably isn't even as long ago as we imagine, but there were communities and groups within pubs and villages and local shops, and everyone would talk and share stories.
Oh, yeah.
Nowadays, we're all so isolated because we all live busy lives. No one talks out and about when we walk down the road. Now, you could have taught your formula to your clients individually. Why was it important for you to rally together a community and create a club across the world?
Yeah, just because people are on their own. When we first started talking about this, people would say, I board at a barn or in a yard, but people don't get it. So they just felt on their own. And I'm like, well, come and join us. Well, but you're in England. Well, that doesn't matter. That's what we've got the internet for now, that we can be together. We've got people from very rural areas of America, all over the States. We've got Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Canada, Great Britain, Ireland. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful to bring these people together and just share stories, listen to someone else's life, and people post their pictures, and that's really cool to see, that people are keeping their herd of horses in the snow and just learning about that. Just really, really interesting. And then we come together once a month for the webinars. And then we also have a Zoom meetup once a month where, again, there's people from all over the world and everyone's getting to know each other and recognize each other's faces. Yeah, it's really cool. I love it.
And it's interesting when we talk about aging across all spheres, whether in the equestrian world or just in society, it's often billed as being you get weaker, you lose this, you lose that.
Yeah.
But what strengths do you gain as an older rider?
Yeah. I think the strengths that you gain is the ability to learn to not care what someone else thinks. I think you gain the ability to be able to go, you know what, I need some help. I don't know everything about everything. I need some help. When I was younger, I'd ride anything, and I was quite ego driven. I think looking back now, and I was too afraid to say to people, oh, I really want to do that, but I don't know how to. Whereas as a grown up, not a grown up, but as someone who's older, you just think, I don't care. I don't care that I don't have all the answers. I want to keep learning all the time. And that's part of why I put the webinars together as well. It's like, I want to learn from all of these people who are incredible. Listening to Warwick Schiller for 90 minutes just with our group was incredible. And he was about to go off and do things that he felt out of his comfort zone, riding across Mongolia. And so it was really cool to listen to people like Warwick, who you think, oh, they've got it all sorted. And with him showing his vulnerability and going, oh, this is going to be interesting. So yeah, that I really love. But we want to share the formula with as many people as possible and not necessarily put that formula behind a paywall. So we're sharing that freely now, where people can access how to implement the WISE formula and how to make the 1% rule work for them. So anyone can access that. But we're just really hoping as well that people come and join us in the club, which it is a paid club, but you get so much for your 12 months membership. And we're finding that it's a place where you can just get everything you want under one roof, which is great because there's so much information out there now. So much that you can kind of drive yourself crazy bouncing around trying to find it all the time. But the beauty of our community is it's not one particular way. We have Western riders, we have dressage riders, we have happy hackers, people who only want to do liberty. And I think that is the beauty when you get older, is like, it doesn't matter what you do. It's how you do it to keep building your own confidence so that you want to do it and you want to thrive with horses right into your 90s. I mean, look at the Queen. God rest her soul. We miss her so much. But she was such an inspiration when it came to horses. But as she got older, you saw her starting to make changes. I mean, we never got her into a helmet, but, the protection headscarf.
Amazing.
God love her. But you did start to see her riding calmer horses, quieter horses, not tanking across, Great Windsor Park anymore, just walking. And I just thought, good for you. She didn't care who saw that. She didn't care. She was like, this is what suits me. And, ultimately she's at the pinnacle there of like, be more like the Queen. Give up things gracefully if they don't serve you anymore, and don't worry what anybody else thinks. Find your people, find your tribe, whether that's in your own village, whether that's in a riding club, whether that's in an online club like ours. Find your people that lift you up and that don't tell you what you're doing is wrong, that you're letting the horse get away with it, that that you should be doing this. All that does is undermine your confidence, make you feel crap about yourself, and then you give up. And I've seen it too many times. And that makes me really sad. It's like, it doesn't have to be like that. And we hear it a lot from students going, I thought it was over. I thought it was done, and I just cantered, and it was amazing, and I can't wait to do it again. It's like, that's why I do it.
And obviously, as a trainer, you're guiding and helping other people. But when have you put these structures in place for your own horses when you're in the saddle to keep yourself safe, but also to keep reprogramming your own brain? Because you are only human. And sometimes it is easy to kind of assume that our trainers find it so easy and, live a totally easy life with all the plans laid out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just isn't the reality. You try to tell yourself that story. And in a way, COVID for me, much as it was awful and testing for everyone, it was good in a way that it made me step back and go, I just don't think I want to do it like I did anymore. But the actual moment it changed for me was I came back and I was working as a behaviorist, essentially, going out and helping people on the ground who were having real problems with very, very challenging horses. And I kept getting tugged and tugged and tugged by horses. The first time I was working with them, all of their behaviors were on show. We'd always get somewhere for the most part. Things would get better. But I went to my physio for like the 5th time. And she said, when are you actually going to admit to yourself that this is too much for you? Your muscle structure is not holding your arm in place. Your arm is literally going to get pulled off. Is that when you're going to pay attention? And I just really thought about it, and I was hurting. I just thought, what am I doing? Now, it wasn't ego driven, although I'm sure there was an element of that. I wanted to help people. I felt like I could help people. My speciality is the horse-human relationship. That's what massively floats my boat. But then I realized I was trying to help in a way that perhaps I couldn't anymore. I physically couldn't do it anymore. And I know so many older riders. I mean, I'm only 51. I've got riders, like I said, 50, 60, 70, 80s and 90s, who I've got riders who were lifelong riders. And they say, I wish that I had gracefully stepped back before I did, because now I'm so hurt and my back is so messed up, that I wish I changed the way that I'd done things. Doesn't mean that you quit. It doesn't mean that you give up, but you can help people in other ways. So for me as an instructor, it was then stepping back and going, well, I still feel like I've got something to give, but I don't want to physically go out now and help people with horses who should have had help 5 years ago. So that just made me rethink things. And I was doing the WISE formula for myself after the physio had talked to me about that. It's like I'd get a phone call and I'd be like, why am I doing this? The W of WISE. Why am I doing it? Because I want to help someone. Okay, what's my intuition saying? That I shouldn't be doing this. This horse is probably going to hurt me because I don't have the strength that I did have going through the menopause. My strength changed. That's just me. S for safety. Can I guarantee? Well, you can't ever guarantee that you're going to stay safe. A horse at a walk can trip over. But, safety wise, is this the right thing to do? No. Or I would think, yeah, it'll be fine. I'm just going to help them because they really don't have anyone else. So I would come back with one arm longer than the other, or equally feeling emotionally wrung out because the person that has called me in has no intention of trying to help this horse. They just want a quick fix so they can get back on and get going again. And it was like evaluation, the E. Would I do this again? No. And I did it too many times. And that's when I went, okay, things need to change now. And I thought, I think I can share this with people. And it just sent me in another direction as an instructor, and one that is different, but infinitely more rewarding.
I think it's so refreshing as well that you're talking about the menopause in relation to horse owning, horse training, horse riding, because it's starting now to open up on telly, isn't it? We see panels of women talking about the menopause, how it's affected their relationships, their love lives, their careers. But I've never heard any discussions about how it affects keeping horses, riding horses. So I think it's so refreshing, and so interesting that you're opening up this conversation now. And as someone who in the future will have to go through that, I'm grateful. But I can imagine that many women who are part of your club are incredibly grateful that you've opened up this discussion now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about this stuff because actually I'm quite a private person, but I was seeing people struggling, and some people sail through the menopause and it's fine. For the most part, I've come through it pretty good, apart from, regularly on a podcast or something, you'll suddenly see me go bright red because I'm having a hot flush. In fact, I think I did it on your last podcast. But for me, it was like my strength went down, and that coincided with lockdown. Okay, yeah, I could get to the gym and pump iron and try and stay stronger, but there is scientifically a loss of strength during menopause. Also, I think that your energy's not quite as it used to be. That apparently does come back once you've gone through menopause. But balance, for some people, their balance goes right off. For some people, their emotions are all over the place. Thankfully, I didn't get that side of it. But people who were trying to train their horses, trying to push through, trying to be everything they've always been, very emotional, super disconnecting in the relationship. Rather than taking a step and going, actually, a step back or a step in another direction is not a failure. It's not a failure. It just means you're doing something differently. And actually, you can get back to doing all the things that you did before, but in a different way, in a different frame, where you don't feel like you're judged, where you don't feel like you're judging yourself. And it's really important. Life is hard enough without us giving ourselves a kick in. It's just not worth it. But it's hard. It's hard to let it go.
Well, exactly. And I'm just listening to you talk, Andrea, and thinking of the women of the past who may have given up their horses during the menopause because people didn't talk about the extra struggles they go through. and actually adapt the way they're keeping their horse in a way that's manageable to the symptoms. And now actually through these open discussions, those who are struggling can find resources like your club and think, actually, I'm not alone. Other people have adapted their lifestyles and are able to keep doing what they want to do. I can just see it now, the people that have had to give up their horses and the heartache that must have caused if they came out the other end of the menopause and thought, what have I done?
Yeah, absolutely. And that has happened. And I have students in the group who have had that happen, where they said, if I'd just known what it was, even because things weren't talked about back then, or they would be, well, everyone else in the family went through it fine. You need to just pull up your bootlaces. And that's what we do to ourselves. I should be okay with this. What's wrong with me? Why am I so rubbish? Why, and again, stress exasperates everything. And we're a lot busier in our lives, and that's what I really think about. My symptoms aren't horrendous, but I know people's who they are, and they're trying to not only keep their horses going, they're keeping a job and a family going. And that is hard. That is really hard. And there's days where they're just like, I can't do this. It's like, just take a step back, try and take a day for yourself. But it's hard. It's hard because we, in our society, it's like you must produce, you must be gung ho, you must be, killing it. And it's like there's days where you just think, I just want to sit on the sofa, eat chocolate and watch Dirty Dancing. I don't want to play today. I don't want to do Apple today. And, it's like that with your horses. The amount of times I hear, oh, but I should be doing more with them. Listen, horses are not ambitious. They are not ambitious. They do not have a prefrontal cortex to speak of. They do not think like we do. They go, Nosh, I'm in a field with my friends, having a great time. And we go, I feel so bad. I'm just going to bash myself in a bit more. Okay, our horses get too fat. They need exercise. They need all of those things. I'm not saying they don't. But on those days where you just don't feel like you can do it, don't do it. It's okay.
And it's so refreshing to hear that when we are bombarded, aren't we, with Instagram reels and YouTube videos and Facebook blogs that are all encouraging us to go out and hit the next target. And it does feel like a bombardment, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We are really good at making ourselves appear to be failures. But we're changing that. We're changing that. And I say to them, if you feel like that, I'm coming for you. It's like, come on, join us. Feel amongst people that understand. Feel amongst people that go, you're perfect just the way you are. Because you are. We're all going through different things. We have a lot of people in the Wise Riders group who are like cancer survivors who did have to give up their horses while they were sick. And now they're finding their way back. And they're like, I feel like I'm running out of time. It's like, there's time. Hopefully there is time. Just get down to the barn, get to your local stables, go and stroke a horse, do something that connects you back with a horse that makes your heart sing and makes you feel good about it. It might not look like it did, but that's okay.
And it's so important that we hear these stories in the wider equestrian industry as well about older people keeping their horses, about older people riding, cancer survivors, people who've been through trauma, people who've had a really hard life but are elderly and looking after their horses. Because I actually was really shocked. I went on a date a few months ago and he came from a horsey background and he was talking about his mum keeping a herd of horses. And I thought, brilliant, we've got a connection here. Great, we can talk all about horses. And then I was absolutely shocked as he then said, and every week I say to her, when are you going to give up these horses? You are too old to keep doing what you're doing. It's too dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that was the nail in the coffin for me.
100%. I have students that are on the group all the time going, my family are pressurizing me to quit. They're pressurizing me to stop. They say it's too dangerous. But what I say to them then is, okay, let's have a look at this. Why do they think it's too dangerous? Are you doing things that are perhaps perhaps you're not feeling comfortable with anymore. Perhaps you are regularly falling. Okay, that does need looking at, because it ultimately, our families love us and they want to protect us and they want us to stay safe. And that's why they're saying, oh my gosh, you've fallen off again. Okay, well, let's look at what you're doing. Is there another way that we can do this? Is it that this horse is too much for you? That happens as well. Well, but I love him. Okay. But that doesn't mean you need to do what you're doing on that horse. So whilst I always advocate for no, don't let the families take it away from you, we do need to pay attention to why they're saying it. They ultimately, for the most part, have their best interests at heart. Not all of them. Some of them will be the financial element or whatever, or they just want more time with the person that's spending a lot of time with horses. So again, it's stepping back, looking, can I do things maybe differently? Can I approach this differently? Can I use the 1% rule to train my horse using some of the resources that I get in the training journals, or by reaching out to other students, listening to the webinars and getting ideas? Is there a way that I can take the next month doing the 1% rule and stop my horse, retrain my horse from spooking every time they go past A, B, C, or D, that you fought through and managed when you were younger and you somehow just managed to, but now your balance isn't the same. Now that horse is spooking and you're falling. Okay, well, let's do something about it. Let's change that. So, yeah, but I do hear that one a lot of people saying,
it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Don't surrender.
I was saying, I was absolutely outraged, as you can imagine, and was, questioning why on earth he'd say that. And it just seemed to be that he said, she's sliding around in the mud and she's out in all weathers and it's too dangerous. She could fall, she could break a hip, she could. And I thought, gosh, not only is it horrible to hear someone trying to persuade someone away from their lifestyle that they love and their hobby that they love, but also that sort of element of just assuming, you're older now, that's a young person's lifestyle, is what I was hearing, and was, shocked and thought how awful. I mean, my mum plans to ride until the day she dies. We keep horses together. She loves groundwork, and has no concept of giving that up. And her friends will say to her, oh, what age do you think you'll give up the horses? And mum's like, well, never. I'm never going to, I don't have an age.
No.
I'll be doing it till I die. And I aim to follow
like
it
I said,
in her footsteps.
Have people. Yeah, absolutely. And if you can, I mean, there are people who generally do have to give up horses in older age because of illness, etc., etc. And that's really hard for them, And we still have them in the group, even though they don't have horses anymore. And that's the way they stay connected to an equine community, because it breeds a sort of, a type of person, pragmatic people who, as they get older, they can share their stories and tell us fun things that they did when they were younger. It's really cool. Really, really cool. But yeah, sometimes it forces you to give up. But I've got students that are riding every day and they're in their 90s. I think, wow, that's really cool.
That is an inspiration. And how important is it as well for you, Andrea, to share these conversations with people like myself who aren't there yet, but obviously every day we're aging, and in decades to come, the aging process begins. How important is it to open up these conversations with the younger generations coming through?
Yeah, I think it's really important, because everyone has a story. And some of these older riders have incredible stories that are super inspiring, make you think, ultimately, they've paved the way for us. They are paving the way for the next generation. And they've done that. They've done all their gung-ho stuff. I think about my grandmother. I mean, she's passed now, but she was a lifelong horse person. And she was telling me a story one time about when war broke out, the Second World War broke out. And she was in Cornwall. She was intending to join the Wrens, the female part of the Navy. And they'd heard that the army were coming through the area that we were from in Cornwall. And they said, everyone has to bring out their horses, and any horses over 14.2 are coming with us, and any under have to stay. And, so just her telling
Oh
me
my
that story that they
gosh.
went down to the local farrier's place where they had 8 horses and 2 came home. 2 came home and they never saw those horses again. And it's like, you know, just hearing those stories and what they've gone through and their love of their horses, you think, people need to pay attention and listen to the stories that older people can tell you about horses and their life with them, because when they're gone, those stories, they're gone. And like you said, the pubs are closing down. People are not out and about socializing as much as they perhaps once did. And it's like when you get an opportunity to ask them about their lives with horses, it will blow your mind, some of the things that they'll tell you. It's super interesting. Yeah.
Wow, I've got so many questions about how your nan must have felt having just 2 of the horses return home, and what
Yeah.
that reunion must have been like.
Oh,
I mean, wow. I mean, it just reminds me of Warhorse, the
terrible. Well,
stage
I mean,
show and the film.
well, they never came home. So there was no reunion because the horses that left never came back. So yeah,
Oh
and
my
I think
gosh.
something like 90% of the horses that went out in the Second World War never came back. Yeah. Horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
Oh,
So,
awful.
it's just these stories that we need to remember these stories. We need to remember them. Yeah.
And so interesting what you say as well about people would come out with their horses. Of course, horses were much more ingrained as part of village life, community life, because they were people's incomes, they were working the farms, they were driving the carts, they were
Yeah.
transport for families. Nowadays, of course, horses are seen as a bit of a luxury, as a hobby, as a recreation,
Sure.
or as a sport. So you walk out of your house and you're not necessarily within a horsey community. So again, so important that we find our tribe in the equestrian sphere, because actually our
Definitely.
friends and our colleagues might not be horsey people.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it might look different to what it used to, because so much land now as well, where the riding stables used to be and livery yards used to be, has been sold for development, for instance. And there's houses going on it and it's shrinking. And I see that all around the world. When I teach, it's like it's getting smaller. So finding your community in another way is really important, because that's the biggest thing I would hear from people who were joining the Wise Riders Club was like, oh, I'm so grateful to find everyone, because I've been on my own, knowing that I wanted to change the way I do things, not really being sure how to, and being told by the fourth community around me, as it sort of existed, that what I was doing was wrong and that maybe it was time to quit. So yeah, finding the people that can relate to you is really important.
And talking, a great reminder, Andrea, to anyone listening, to talk to your ancestors and your older generations while you have them. I've just lost my uncle at 97, incredible horse rider, until
Sorry.
well into his 80s. But, thinking about the discussions we're having today, I would have loved to have picked his brain about how his riding changed over the years. And his late wife only started riding in her 40s and would go hunting and hacking in a dresser, not in a dress, in a side saddle, believe it or not. And
Yeah,
everyone in her local
crazy.
area was sort of blown away by it. But again, I'd have loved to have talked to her about that feeling
Yeah.
of beginning the journey in your 40s as someone who started riding as a child. I mean, Andrea, for your clients, what benefits do you think there are for anyone listening who actually wants to start riding when they're slightly older? What benefits are there for someone who's in their 40s, 50s and riding for the first time?
Yeah. I mean, I've got people in the group who started riding. One lady just yesterday started riding at 67. And she said it keeps
Wow.
her flexible. It gives her a reason to get out and about. I mean, 67 is no age these days, but it gives her a purpose, gives her a passion, helps her keep fit. Connection with the horse. A lot of people at that age, their families have moved away. Their families have got their own families and they're not as involved perhaps. So it gives a nice connection, a heart connection between a horse and a human. So yeah, it is never too late to start. It's never too late to start.
And it's great to hear those positive stories, because I think also when you're younger, you are told, oh, when you're older, you won't bounce like you do now. So again, sort of infiltrating you when you're young to kind of believe that you're going to be weaker or less able in some way.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And that is something that's really important, is remembering that, it's different for absolutely everybody. Like I said, we've got people still riding in their 90s. They are wonderful. They're thriving with horses. They love it. So never too late.
Andrew, as you look ahead to the future of your brand new club and community, what are your hopes for the future generations who are aging currently, but what that equestrian sphere and life as an equestrian will look like for older generations in the future? For me, for example.
Yeah, I just really hope that they're understood a lot more, that lessons are tailored more to them, to understand that they have value and stories to bring. But my ultimate goal is to keep as many people as they get older with whatever it is that they love to do with horses. Some people just want to groom them and be with them. Some people just want to do liberty. Some still want to ride. Some want to do dressage. I've got a few that are doing cross country. Whatever floats your boat, we are here for you. And I want to support you in a way that suits you, that doesn't suit necessarily the picture that we see of all these gung-ho riders. It doesn't have to look like that. You can still have a really fulfilled life with horses in a way that fits you. That's what
And for those listening right now who are thinking, I want some support, I want some inspiration, how can they find your club and your community?
Yeah, well, even before you get to the club, we have free training going on right now for the whole of May. So you go to horseclass.com/formula. And there is an hour and a half's webinar on there explaining all about how you can use the formula and the wise riders. And then there's several articles talking about it in a practical sense. And that is completely free. You can sign up for that. You get the training immediately. And then towards the end of May, we're going to be doing a free workshop as well, which will be 3 different videos. But the first step to take is to register at horseclass.com/formula, and you'll get the free training immediately. And that can be a real game changer. That might be enough for you. We'd love to see you in the club. I feel like there's so many cool people in there, and more coming in to bring more experiences and more sharing would be absolutely great. And, the webinars that we've got coming up are incredible. Anyone that does join the Wise Riders Club, at the moment, the membership is closed, but we're opening it again at the end of May. So you'll get all of the webinars that have come for the last 6 months. So you'll have the Karen Rolfe, Warwick Schiller. There's a whole load there that are amazing. And then coming up, we've got some incredible ones from David Litchman, Linda Tellington Jones. It's exciting. We've got a lot coming on, and then we'll be carrying on through the next year. But right now, training is completely free. So horseclass.com/formula. Everything's there.
Well, that sounds very exciting. Before you go, Andrea, just tell us, when you're 90, when you're approaching 100, what do you hope to still be doing with your horses?
Enjoying it. That's what I hope. Enjoying it. Whatever that looks like, I want to still be having fun. This is meant to be fun. I want my confidence level to be exactly where I want it to be at that time, and have fun. That's what I want.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your thoughts and words of wisdom, Andrew. It's helped me to be hopeful looking forwards, but also there's so much that you've taught us today that applies to any age in terms of feeling empowered and owning your own thoughts and doing what you want to do and not being pressurized into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to be exclusive. We are focusing on sort of the over 50s, but this stuff works for anyone. The other thing I want to be doing, what I do now and what I still want to be doing in my 90s, is the ultimate in that, putting the relationship first. The horses come first.
Perfectly put. Andrea, thank you so much for coming on Curious Equestrian.